Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope you're great. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about what is interfaces, how to use them, and especially why you should use interfaces instead of casting. And I will use this door as an example to showcase the interface. So before this, if you do like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't lose any new content. And without further ado, let's start. Okay, first let me show you what I have here. So it's a third-person template and I have this door. Of course, I can interact with the door, I can open and close the door, and I want here to open the door only if we have the key. So this is the example I'm gonna show you to showcase how to use interfaces and especially why you should use them. So an interface is essentially a way to enable communication between blueprints, but it's not the only way. So in this video, I want to show you casting and interfaces, and I want to show you why it's better to use interfaces instead of casting. But before, because interfaces is the point of this video, I have prepared some code just to make things faster. So here in the character, I have a variable has key. This is a boolean, and by default this is set to false, so basically we don't have the key, right? And the door is just a blueprint, right? A normal blueprint, and I have here an event to interact with the door. So basically here is where I open and close the door when we interact, right? So basically here is where we're gonna put the check to see if we have the key or not. So the door blueprint needs to know if the character has the key or not. So we need to create this communication, right, between the door and the character, the BP third person character, right? So let me show you how we're gonna do this. But before that, let's go back to the folders so I can show you how you can see the dependencies of the blueprint and the size of the blueprint. So to see the dependencies, just right click on the blueprint you want and go to reference viewer. Let's click on this, and this is basically a dependencies map of the blueprint. So these are basically saying that when we load this door in the map, we also need to load the standard macros, the BPI interactable interface. This is just an interface that I created to interact with the door, right? We need to load the static mesh for the door and the static mesh for the door frame. So these are basically saying that for this door blueprint to work, we need to load all these here, all these objects here, because these are basically a hard reference, right? We are telling Unreal with a hard reference that for this door to work, we need to load these other things here. And of course, you can increase the search of the depth here. So here we have search dependencies depth. You can increase this to 2, for example. And as you can see, we have even more dependencies. So for this door to work, we need to load the door mesh. And of course, for the door mesh to work, we need to load the materials for this door, right? And the same happens for the door frame. So this is basically how you can see the dependencies of the blueprint. This is basically a dependencies map of that blueprint, right? Now let's see how much memory and disk space this blueprint is using. For that, let's go back to the folders and let's right click again in the door. And now let's go to size map. So here, as you can see in the BP door, the whole blueprint is using 4 megabytes of disk space. So here in size to display, you can select disk or memory. So for the disk, this blueprint, the BP door is using 4 megabytes. So now let's change this to memory size. And as you can see, the door is using 17 megabytes of the memory, right? So this is how you can see how much space your blueprint is using. And of course, you can see this for everything. So for the whole blueprint is 17, but only for the static mesh of the door is 8.7, but for the door frame is 8.5. So basically you can see the size of everything that we have inside the blueprint, right? So now let's do the communication between the door and the third person character using a cast, and let's see what changes on those maps. Let me refresh what we need to do here. So basically I want to open the door only if we have the key, and this information is inside the third person character. Here we have a variable has key. This variable tells us if we have the key or not, right? So inside the door, we need to do a cast to the third person character to get this information and then open the door or not, right? So let's do the cast here. Let me just grab those nodes and let's make some room here. Let's do the cast. To do this, let's right click and type get player character. Let's get this reference here. And from this, we can type cast to third person character, this one here. So let's connect from the A here of this flip-flop because I just want to check this if we are opening the door. So let's grab from the A pin here, let's connect. And now we have the third person character reference here. So from this, we can type get has key because we have this information. So let's just click here and let's put on a branch. Let's connect from the successful cast here. Let me just grab those nodes and make some more room. And of course, if we have the key, let's play the door movement here, this timeline to open the door. Let's connect from the true. And if this is false, I already made a code to send a feedback to the player. So let me just call this here. I need to get the player controller, and then let's get the HUD here. So in the HUD, I have an interface to send a feedback message. So let me just call this here. So if this is false, so we don't have the key, let's send a feedback message here and I will type you don't have the key, right? So basically we are casting to the third person character to get the has key variable, and we are using this variable to open the door or not. And of course, if we don't have the key, I'm sending this message here, you don't have the key. So let's compile and save and let's see if this is working. Let's go back to the map and let's hit play. So now if I try to go to the door here and if I try to open, as you can see, we have the message, you don't have the key, as you can see. So everything is working, but let's see now the size of the door blueprint, and of course, let's see the dependencies. And of course, if I go to the third person character and if I set this has key to true, now we have the key, so let's compile and save and let's hit play. Now that we have the key, if I try to open, the door will open, as you can see. So the casting is working, we are getting the information and we are using the information to open the door or not. But let's see the size of this blueprint and the dependencies. Okay, so now let's go back to the reference viewer and let's click on this button to refresh this graph. And as you can see, now when we load the door in the map, we need to load the third person character as well. And of course, all the dependencies of the third person character. So this is basically a hard reference. So when you create a cast inside the blueprint, you are basically creating a hard reference to that blueprint. So in my case here, the third person character, right? So now let's go back to the map here and let's see the size of this blueprint. Let's right click and let's go to size map. And as you can see, now the in-memory space required for this blueprint is 127. It's much more than before. And if we change this to disk size, as you can see, this is bigger as well, 213. So this is basically why I don't recommend using casting in blueprints like this, because as you can see now, when we load the door, we need to load the third person character as well. Here we have the BP third person character inside the door, as you can see. So now let's see a way that we can do this without need to cast. Let's use interfaces. Okay, so let's delete everything here, the get player character, the cast, this variable and the branch, and this feedback code here. Let's connect from the A like we had before, and let's compile and save. Okay, so to use an interface, first we need to create the interface. So let's go back to the third person map and let's go to interface folder. I have this folder here for all the interfaces. Here, let's right click and let's go to blueprint. So here we have blueprint interface. Let's click on this and I will name this BPI BPI player, because this interface will go to the player, right? So let's open this, and here is basically where we define all the functions that we need. So remember, we need to get the information if we have the key or not in the player. So I will create a function here. Let's name this get has key, for example. Let me name it get has key, and this will have one output. So here in outputs, let's add one, and I will name this has key. And the type of this, of course, is Boolean. Let's compile and save, because here in the interface we can only define the functions. We can't implement anything here. We need to add this interface in a blueprint, and then in the blueprint we can implement this function. So this interface will go to the player. So let's go to the third person character blueprint, and here we need to add the player interface. To do this, let's go to class settings. We have this option here, and here we have implemented interfaces. Let's click on add to add one interface, and here we just need to search for the interface. So in my case here, BPI player. Let's click on this, and now that we have the BPI player inside this blueprint, we can go here to my blueprints. Here we have interfaces category. Let's expand this, and as you can see, now we have the get has key function to implement. To implement this, you just need to double click on this interface here, on this function. And as you can see, now we have the function, and in this function we need to return a has key value. So for that, let's just drag the variable here, and let's connect in the output like so. So basically, when another blueprint called this has key function, we will return the has key variable of the player blueprint, right? Let's compile and save, and that's basically it. That's all we need to do for this interface. Now let's go back to the door, and let's use the interface to get the information. So to use this interface, we need a reference to the actor that we are trying to use the interface, right? So let's right click and let's type get player character here. Let's get player character, and now we don't need to do any casting. We just need to drag from this and call the get has key. And as you can see, we have the BPI player interface get has key function. Let's click on this. Let's connect here from the A. And of course, we have the has key variable here. We just need to drag and connect in a branch, as you can see. And if we have the key, let's connect on the play here to do the door animation, right? And if not, let's again send a feedback message to the player. So I created a code for that. Let me just get the player controller, and from that, let me get the HUD. Get HUD, and I'm using an interface to do this as well. So I don't need to cast to the HUD, I just need to call the interface function set feedback message that I created here. Let's connect from the false, and I just need to type a message here. So basically, you don't have the key. So this is basically the same that we did for cast, but now using interfaces. Let's compile and save. Let me just go back to the third person character here to show you that for now we have the key, so the has key is true. Let's go back to the map and let's hit play to see if it's working. So if I go to the door here and if I try to interact, there we go, the door opens. Of course, it closes as well, as you can see. So everything is working just fine. So let's just see now the dependencies and the size of this door blueprint. Now let's open again the reference viewer for the door. So let's see the dependencies. So just right click on the door and go to reference viewer. So as you can see, now we don't have a dependency on the third person character. Now we have a dependency only in the BPI HUD interface, in the interactable interface, and in the player interface. So only in the interfaces, right? And on the third person character itself. Let's close this and let's open the size map of the door now. Let's right click and let's open the size map. And as you can see, now the memory space required for this door is only 17 megabytes. So basically the same as before. And if we change this to disk size as well, as you can see, it's only 4 megabytes. So basically everything is the same as before, but we still have the functionality. We are only opening the door if we have the key. So if I go to the third person character here, and if I change this has key to false, compile and save, if we play, let's play this, and if we try to interact with the door, there we go, you don't have the key. So basically we are doing the same functionality without needing to cast directly to the player. So the size map of the blueprint is the same as before. So basically we are doing the same thing without having to increase the required memory for the door, right? So this is basically why I recommend using interfaces instead of casting, right? And this is basically it for this video. I just want to show you the importance of interfaces when designing your systems and basically why you should use interfaces instead of casting. So this is basically it. If you did like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't lose any new content. And as always, thank you for watching. Keep learning. I'll see you in the next video.